Hey, it's Sandra. Welcome to another episode of Asexualise, My Asexual Life. There's a place to be for education, entertainment, and information all about asexuality, and I also do lifestyle vlogs. So, tonight I've got a special movie review for you. So, I'm asexual and sexual orientation. I don't get the need, urge, or want for partnered sexual intercourse because I'm not sexually attracted to anyone. I'm absence of sexual attraction. Asexual means absence of sexual attraction. And I don't like seeing sex scenes in movies, so I purposely try to find movies with no sex scenes in them. And I'm pleased to say Transformers 1 has no sex scenes in it, but is full of action. So if you don't like spoilers, please do not watch this video because I am going to spoil the plot for you. And I have to say, I absolutely loved this movie. It's one of my favorite movies I've watched this year, I think. It was so action packed. I loved all the robot stuff. I thought it was incredible. The action was like non-stop. It was so interesting. I kept thinking all the way through the film, this is so good, this is so good. Because this tells the backstory of the Transformers, why they are the way they are, how they came to be, how Megatron and Optimus Prime came into existence. I didn't know the backstory because I don't read the comics and I haven't read any books or anything like that. And I didn't understand the backstory. So finally, with this movie, Transformers 1, the penny dropped big time. I'm like, so that is it. Right, I didn't get it. So in this movie, you see Cybertron, and there's a being, if you like, that's in charge of Cybertron, right? And he is meant to be a good guy, but he's really a bad guy. So he tells the other Transformers that don't transform at this stage, he tells these people who are miners, these robots, not people, robots that are miners, they mine for this fluid that's meant to keep them alive, right? And so what happens is there is a storyline going on. And so Cybertron is full of robots. They're called sentient robots. And in order to keep them alive, they're fueled by something called energon, a bit like energy, and fitted with transformer cogs. So that's devices that allow them to transform into vehicles in the underground city of Lakon. So if I read a little bit from Wikipedia on this, Orion Pax, so he is a mining robot, right? He's the one that actually ends up being Optimus Prime. I'll tell you that now, right? So Orion Pax is a mining robot without a cog, right? And he has another robot that he comes across called D16, who later becomes Megatron. And so this is how the story starts of the Transformers movies. So this movie is a prequel to all the other movies that have already been released and happened. But this tells you all the backstory of how things happened the way they did. So, right. But in the beginning of this movie, you find out they are miners and they are mining for a substance called energon, which is to keep the other robots alive. And something's happened where they're not allowed to go to the surface. They're told the surface is really, really dangerous. So lots of these robots are mining for this energon, which is in limited supply. That's to keep them alive, basically. So, and to keep all the robots alive on the planet of Cybertron. So Orion Pax meets D16 and they form a best friendship. They're both starting at the same time. They're both miners and they are actually friends at this point. So it's kind of like weird to see them being friends and how they were kind of sweet and innocent together at the beginning. But you do get the sense that Orion Pax is very much kind of the leader, and also he is very full of ambition. He believes there's more to life than just mining. He believes there's a life above the surface, and that he is born to be more than he's conditioned to be. It's a very similar theme in that way to the wild robot, that we have to be more than we're conditioned to be, that we have to be more than we're programmed to be. And I truly believe that in real life. I believe that we can be far more that we've been conditioned to believe by different people in our life. And we have to rise above other people's opinions and other people confining us to what they want us to be in order to succeed in life and thrive and flourish. So in this movie, there is a Cybertron leader called Sentinel Prime. And he returns from an expedition to the planet's surface to find something called the Matrix of Leadership. It's a lost matrix of leadership. And the absence of that caused energon to stop flowing. So that's why the miners, the mining robots, are having to extract it. So, yeah, but it's in really limited supply, so it's really hard for them to mine it. But Orion Pax believes that him and D16 and the other robots are more than just mining robots. And you can see that a D16 at this point, who later becomes Megatron, at that point, he's very conditioned. He's very conditioned by the leader of Cybertron at this point, called Sentinel Prime. He's very, very influenced by him. He's very conditioned by him. He's narrow-minded because he believes he's got to stay in his place, do what he's told, and he's very, very obedient. Whereas Ryan Pax is kind of like a wild goose, if you know what I mean. He's very, not wanting to stay still. He's wanting to be on the move. He's wanting to be on the go. He's wanting to explore the surface. He's wanting to take risks. He's wanting to venture out and be more than people. Well, it's not people, is it? But it's robots. The other robots have told him he is. He doesn't want to settle for second best. He doesn't just want to be doing mining all his life. And he thinks and knows deep within his soul he's born for more. So this attitude and opinion to do more and he's born for more does get him into trouble. But it's for his own good, because he would not grow as a bot unless he took risks. And D16 at this point is very, very compliant, whereas Orion Pax is not compliant. He's like a wild robot that doesn't want to play by the rules. And I absolutely love this about Orion Pax. I loved his character all the way through the movie. I did like D16 at this point, who later becomes Megatron, but I liked him in the fact he's Ryan Pax's best friend, not so much because the robot himself's that great, if you know what I mean. Because it's always a Ryan Pax saying, "I've got your back" to D16. Ryan Pax is very loyal, very faithful, knows his own mind, doesn't like to be conditioned, and you can see how he has the qualities that later make him Optimus Prime. So I really love the fact that they were blending in all the qualities that you would expect an Optimus Prime from an early age. You could see how they were bringing his character to life, how they were making him stand out from the rest of the bots, how they were making him form his own character, shape his own destiny. And that way you can see he's a leader. Leaders stand out. They don't follow the crowd. They're not like the sheep. They are like the shepherd who's commanding their own flock and who wanders through the wilderness, if you like, to build his own grand farm of whatever he wants, grow his own crops, do his own thing, be his own leader, be his own guiding star, So I thought this was really, really, really good. I really loved the Orion Pax character. I liked the way his little robotic face was and everything. Really, really good. And so this was excellent. But what happened was is in order for Orion Pax, in order to prove his worth, if you like, and that miners are more than they're conditioned to be, he gets into a race against the Transformer bots with D16. Now, D16 doesn't want to get in the race. D16 wants to remain compliant and do as is told so that he doesn't get into trouble with his superiors. But Orion Pax doesn't want that. Orion Pax wants to prove that they can do just as well as the bots that can transform, even though they've had their transformer cogs taken out of them. They don't know at this point they've had them removed. They just think they haven't got them, right? You find out later on that they've been removed to stop them transforming on purpose. But anyway, they do really, really well. But the last part of the race, they get taken over and then they lose. And so it's D16 then blames Orion Pax, saying, you caused us a lot of problems, blah, 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 and has a go at him. And then the Sentinel Prime comes along and actually says, you've done a great job. And, it's amazing what you did and what you achieved and what you showed the other miners. And we'd like you to, or I'd like you as a leader of Cybertron to show the other miners that they're more than they're capable of thinking they are. And this is to boost their productivity and work harder at the mining. It's not to actually show them there's a way out of there. It's to get them to mine more. So it's for selfish reasons. Anyway, instead of them being given this responsibility and like supervising the miners more and being leadership with them, they get put in this underground, I think it's an underground level. It's a different level anyway of the place of Cybertron. It's a different level of where they're being kept, right? So what happens is, although Sentinel Prime promises to reward the two for the two bots, D16 and Orion Pax, for proving themselves as more than miners, Darkwing, which is another actual robot, takes them off to a garbage incineration where they meet B127. Now, B127 is later in the movies known as Bumblebee. And it was really interesting because throughout this whole movie, B127 is chatting loads. And so now you know that later on when they put that thing over its mouth to shut it up, that's because in this movie it won't stop talking. Bumblebee won't stop talking, but it's not known as Bumblebee. It's just known as B27, B127, sorry, not B27, B127. And then it's later obviously known as B and Bumblebee in the later movies. But anyway, what happens is, down in this garbage incineration where B127's basically been banished to work, they've got old robots and old robot parts. They're like old robot parts they need to break down and use for scrap or whatever. And they need to melt them down. And anyway, he's got these old robots that are supposed to not work, but he talks to them because he's got so lonely down there because he's been down there for ages and doesn't usually have any company. So because Orion Pax is down there in D16, he's like really excited to have some new friends down there. So anyway, one of the robots ends up coming to life a little bit with its memory. And it has a chip in there. And it shows that it's a distress message from something called Alpha Trion, who's one of the primes. So Orion Pax convinces the D16 and B127 to travel with him to go to the surface. And they also persuade someone called Alita to join them. So Alita previously has been Orion Pax's like supervisor, and Orion Pax ignored her command when she said to get out of this like cave thing, because everything was going to collapse because they were mining and things were going wrong. So she said for them to leave, Orion Pax and D16, but he didn't. Orion Pax didn't, because one of the other miners was injured and he had to drag him out with D16. And so she didn't like him because he didn't obey her commands, but he was actually saving someone's life at the time. So anyway, they end up going on this like cargo ship, I think it is. You know, it's a bit like a freight train. I think that's what you call it. So they basically go to the surface, and they eventually go to this cave. They find this cave. And when they find this cave, they find an old robot that fought years ago in like a robot war. They find him, and Orion Pax brings him back to life, and all the other robots are dead. Like they haven't been sleeping. This robot's like been sleeping, but the other ones haven't. They're like carcasses of dead robots, basically. And this older robot, he's still alive, but he's been in like hibernation. So they bring him to life, and he shows the truth that Sentinel Prime is actually working with the enemy. There's an enemy which I haven't spoke to you about. And this enemy is like robots. They're like, how can I put it? They look like a bit like octopus robots or something, but not cute. They're kind of creepy with lots of weird looking legs. And they want the substance that is keeping the robots alive on Cybertron, but they want the substance for themselves to make them all powerful, because they want to feed off the energy of the other robots. And Sentinel Prime has got a deal with them that he gets them all the substance that they want, and in return he gets to like be and stay leader of Cybertron, basically. So he's really selfish guy. The surface wasn't something to be afraid of per se, but it was in terms of these beings, these bad robots, if you like, because they keep trying to kill Orion Pax and D16 plus B and the other robot they're with, that have come to the surface because they want to detect things that are not meant to be there and kill it, basically. And when they go to this cave and find out what's happening, they find that Sentinel Prime is actually a traitor, and Sentinel Prime has been trying to get the miners to mine this energon so that he can give it to the this thing called, I'll just look at this at Wikipedia, quintesson aliens. So he's given them energon in exchange for letting him rule Cybertron, while creating the minor class by removing their cogs before activation. So Tryon is the old robot that came back to life and showed them like his memory banks of what the war was really like, and the fact that Sentinel Prime was working for the enemy, and Sentinel Prime was the one who killed all his fellow bots. It was horrible, really horrible. So knowing this information, Orion Pax and D16 set about finding these other bots which were originally working against so we really they were working against what can I put, they were working against in the past against the I don't know what to call it. So let me have a quick look at Wikipedia just to check, because there's quite a lot of details in this. I don't want to get them wrong. So right. So the team travels back to Laicon to expose basically him, Sentinel Prime, but is captured by the hard high guards, which are former robots, warbots of the Primes rebelling against the Sentinel. Right, so yeah, so what happened was when Sentinel Prime, when the old robot showed his memory banks and the fact that Sentinel Prime was in fact a traitor, there was warbots that used to rebel against the Sentinel Prime. Right. So, but what happens is the High Guard has a leader, and upon finding out the truth, D16 can't handle the truth. He gets really angry and outraged, and so you see Orion Pax and D16 were friends, and then all of a sudden you see when D16 finds out he's been betrayed by Sentinel Prime, that his whole life has been a waste because he's been compliant and he's been thinking Sentinel Prime is this great leader and he's keeping him safe. In fact, Sentinel Prime's been keeping them captured in order to get the Aragon to be able to stay. Energon, sorry, not Aragon. Aragon is like another movie, isn't it? I think it's to do with dragons. I think is Energon. Energon is the energy substance they need. So Energon. So when he finds out that they've been mining for Energon to keep Sentinel Prime to supply these bad robots, if you like, and the whole mining thing has been set up to be a lie and to just keep them compliant to get this, for Sentinel Prime is using it to his own advantage to remain leader and giving it to the enemy, D16 is absolutely furious. And you see him turn from being really best friends with Orion Pax to turning towards anger. His eyes go red, his being kind of like demeanor transforms, and he ends up destroying the leader of the High Guard. And it's really bad because Orion Pax, who's been friends with D16 since the beginning when they first met as minors, when they first started like at the same time, he is kind of getting really horrified. He doesn't recognize his friend anymore because D16, he gets really red eyes. He starts getting really angry. It's like he doesn't care. He thinks Orion Pax is always doing what he wants. And so D16 decides he wants to do what he wants. He wants to prove his authority and he wants to literally show that he's a leader, and he kind of feels that he's been living in Orion Pax shadow. I mean, they have done the storyline really well because you can see why a little bit he believes he's been living in the shadows of Orion Pax, but really he's just been conning himself, because instead of seeing he's been conditioned all this time and wanting to free himself, he's been at every opportunity Orion Pax has presented to say, there's more to life than just mining. Don't you have a feeling that there's more? And D16 has said, Joe, I have a feeling there's more too, but he didn't want to act on it because he was scared and didn't want to take any risks and wanted to remain compliant. Orion Pax, you can see where the D16 starts to have resentment for Orion Pax, but really D16's brought it on himself. Orion Pax has always been a true, authentic bot. From the moment you see Orion Pax, you see him as this bot that is a leader, that's a bit wild, a bit like far out, a bit like no one can pin me down. I will not be conditioned. I will be who I'm born to be. I know there's something different in me and I'm going to make a difference in this world. Whereas D16 has always been compliant, always been a good little bot, if you know what I mean. If you imagine someone saying good little boy, that's the type of robot. And so he's become resentful all of a sudden because he's resentful of the fact that for so long he's lived in the shadow of his best friend, if you like, which is Orion Pax at that time. But it's a shadow he created for himself because he didn't have to put Orion Pax on this leadership pedestal. But Orion Pax actually was a leader, whereas D16 wasn't. D16 was too afraid to do anything. Every time Orion Pax tried to do something different and out the box, D16 would just complain about it all the time. So if D16 had gone along with it as well, they would have been more equals in that way. But Orion Pax throughout the whole of the movie, you could tell is a leader, whereas D16 is compliant. But when D16 finds out Sentinel Prime has been a traitor, giving the fuel that they mined for to the enemy in order to stay leader of Cybertron, he's fuming. He feels betrayed, he feels hurt, he feels like he's wasted his life, but he also feels resentment for his friend, his best friend, because he feels like he's wasted his life, so he hasn't really stepped up to the plate. He hasn't ever really been a leader. He hasn't ever tried to be a leader, and that's because he was deceived. So they've done the storyline really well, because you see how D16 feels he's been betrayed deeply. He feels like he's been living a lie. He feels like he's not the bot he thought he was, because he's just been got under false pretenses. So they have done a really good storyline of D16. They've done a really good storyline showing how he got the mentality he did and why he turned the way he did. I don't agree with it. I don't like the way he turned. It's horrible. He turns quite quickly in the movie against Ryan Pax, but I thought it's very good that they did the backstory of his psychology. His psychology was basically, I'm compliant, I'm a good boy, I get on and do as I'm told, I don't want to get into trouble. And all of a sudden, he's discovered that the person, which not person, it's an actual bot, Sentinel Prime, the one he looked up to, the one he believed, the one he trusted the most, really, over Orion Pax, because he believed everything Sentinel Prime said, then he gets completely destroyed. It's like his whole life was a lie. So then he doesn't care anymore. Then all he wants is revenge, and he doesn't want to let anyone stand in his way. Plus, he wants to exert his authority, because he's never used his own authority before. He's always seen Orion Pax exert their leadership, if you like, a bit of authority, been leading the life. Like D16's always just done what Orion Pax says, or he's said no to it to be compliant to his leader, that then he finds out has betrayed him all this time. So there is a really good amount of psychology in this movie. You can really see how the characters have been developed, how their mindsets work, why they changed into the characters they did. Obviously, in real life, everyone's got a choice. Everyone can go to the dark side and evil. Everyone can go to the light side and be nice. We are shaped by what happens to us in our life, but we have choices about what we do with those things that happen to us in our life. And we can either turn to the dark side or we can turn to the light side. Every one of us has a choice in life. You'll see people that have been bullied, abused, harassed terribly in childhood. You'll see some people, they choose not to be like that in the adult life and go the opposite way. And you'll see others that just think, other people treat me that way, so I'll go out and treat other people that way. So it'll make me feel hard and better. So different people can have similar or the same sort of experiences, but yet react differently to it. So this is basically like what's gone on. But Orion Pax has always been different. Orion Pax has always had his own mind, so he's never actually been fully led by Sentinel Prime. So he doesn't feel so betrayed, because he never fully trusted, I don't think, Sentinel Prime. And if he did trust him, he didn't really care so much about what Sentinel Prime wanted. He wanted to do what's right for him and for his friend at the time, for his best friend. He wanted to show him there's another way, there's more to life, and to prove himself. He's always had his own mind. So even though Sentinel Prime betrayed them both, D16 took it more personally and more hard, because D16 had been compliant and behaving like a good little boy, if you like, and his whole life was destroyed and taken away. This is what happens when you give other your personal power. When you give people your personal power in real life, if that person deceives you and betrays you, then it feels like your whole world has collapsed and the wool rug has been pulled from underneath your feet. And this gives you a great sense of disorientation. You don't know who you are anymore. So in that moment, you kind of get a disassociation between you and the person you thought you were, because you've been deceived and lied to so much that you don't know who you are, because you based your life on what that person was saying and what you believed about that person. So this is a very important lesson to learn in your life. we really should be more like Orion Pax, who knows his own mind, who thinks for himself, who doesn't want to be hell-bent on being pinned down by the conditions he's kept in, but wants to keep his own sense of self and identity. When you see the character like D16, who's basically had his identity power held by Sentinel Prime, you see how vulnerable and how easily manipulated he's been. And for that, he feels so betrayed and angry because he feels like he's had no control over the whole situation. Whereas Orion Pax and D16 have been in exactly the same situation, but it's how they handled it in two different ways. Do you see what I'm saying? This movie's so deep. I absolutely loved it. The action was astronomical. The transformations of the Transformers was incredible. I loved the psychology. I loved the whole movie. I would definitely say to watch it. There is no sex in it. There's just focusing on relationships and relational intelligence and to different bots with each other. It's so insightful. So you see how D16 actually ended up turning out the way he did. He didn't have to turn out that way. He could have just said, all right, this optional this Sentinel Prime deceived me, but I'm going to choose not to be nasty and destroy things. I'm going to choose not to be like him because I've seen how a power hungry, greedy bot works, but that's not what he does. So D16 takes all the anger and all the frustration, instead of thinking logically, he doesn't have any logical thinking. All he thinks is, I've been betrayed. And he sees his so-called best friend, Orion Pax, as like the enemy in the end, because he sees him as like, oh, you've led your own life, even though you've been a miner like I have. You've been leading your own life. You've been thinking for yourself. You've been doing things for yourself. You've been actually calling the shots with me and you because you've got us in this race, even though we didn't win it. You were always pushing for us to get out to the surface. You were always pushing us along and saying what we should do. And like D16 wasn't really following because he did follow, but he wasn't really into following Orion Pax, if you know what I mean, in the sense that he didn't want to get into trouble. But you can see that D16 has just got fed up because he thinks that Orion Pax can think for himself and be a leader and can do things for himself. And in that way, he sees Orion Pax has been like a go-getter and an action taker and a leader, and he seems him kind. He does actually think sees him above him. D16 sees Orion Pax as above him in terms of leadership at that point, and then he doesn't like that. He's thinking, well, I want to have my say now. I want to have my freedom, but instead of like having it in a good way, he lets the power of his realization of the truth about Sentinel Prime being a traitor, he lets that take over him, and it turns into rage because he feels betrayed and he feels trapped. He feels like he's never led his own life like Orion Pax has, because even though they've both been miners together, Orion Pax has always had his own mind. So he kind of resents Orion Pax for that. He just is like, he's like, you've been leading me. You've been telling me what to do this whole time. You've been telling me like to get out of this situation. And basically he didn't listen to him. So he's lost all that time now. And he just thinks Orion Pax is the leader, but he doesn't want Orion Pax to lead him anymore. And because he feels betrayed by his own leader, Sentinel Prime, he wants to take over. He's like, oh, I can sort of do a better job myself, if you like. But instead of like bringing people together, he ends up destroying. So it's very interesting, this movie. I absolutely love it. I really love it so much. I would watch it again as well. So basically, like I said, D16 actually ends up defeating the leader of the High Guard, and then he becomes more and more aggressive. And so what happens is D16 goes with half the High Guard to try to destroy Sentinel Prime. So yeah, So anyway, it's very, very interesting movie, and without giving every little detail away, what happens in the end is, I'm going to give most of it away anyway. So what happens is D16 wants to kill Sentinel Prime. He tries to kill Sentinel Prime, but instead Orion Pax gets in the way. Now, up until this point, D16 has kind of turned into this aggressive leader, if you like, wanting to rule things. And Orion Pax says, don't kill Sentinel Prime. And D16's like, why, after everything's done? And Orion Pax is like, because you're just going to be as bad as him if you start acting like him with all this aggression and kill him. And D16 wants him out the way, and Orion Pax gets in his way, so he shoots Orion Pax. And Orion Pax is left a great big hole in his body, and he falls off like this cliff thing. And D16 could have saved him. D16 reaches out to him, but he lets him go. And so he falls basically to what would be his death. But he has he basically has the spirits, Primus and the spirits of the primes end up giving him the matrix that everyone's wanted, the matrix of leadership. And they revive him as Optimus Prime. And D16 basically defeats Sentinel, the Sentinel Prime. And he defeats Sentinel Prime, takes over Cybertron, tries to take over Cybertron, and starts basically destroying the place. And Orion Pax has gone to his death, but like I said, the Prime spirits, basically, they give him the matrix of leadership, and they make him Optimus Prime. And D16 ends up becoming a leader there for a time and destroying it before Optimus Prime comes back. So Orion Pax comes back as Optimus Prime and has to try to defeat his best friend. And his best friend has been taking over as a leader after destroying the Sentinel Prime, taking over the leader of Cybertron, but he's been destroying loads of stuff. And he takes Sentinel Prime's cog, which is from a previous robot that has been it's a really powerful robot. He takes this cog and he puts it in himself, and he becomes the leader. So, and then he names himself Megatron, basically. So Megatron used to be called D16 and used to be Orion Pax's best friend, and Orion Pax is now Optimus Prime. So Orion Pax has to battle with Megatron. And then after defeating Megatron, but Megatron's still alive, he banishes Megatron, and Megatron says he'll be back. And so then Optimus Prime, that takes over leadership of Cybertron, the people who follow him are then called Autobots, and he makes sure all of the miners and everyone there has cogs back so they all can transform. So his followers become Autobots. And Megatron, I told you that D16 becomes Megatron, right? But he takes half of those former Warbots. Remember I told you, the High Guard? He takes them with him when he's banished by Optimus Prime, and they become the Decepticons. So I didn't actually know this part of the backstory because I haven't read the comics or anything, like I said. So I didn't even understand that they're all Transformers, but Optimus Prime, his followers are called Autobots, and Megatron's followers, if you like, are called Decepticons. So it's weird because the High Guard didn't used to be the deceivers, they used to be the defenders. So that's why I got confused. I'm thinking, why are they called the Decepticons when they used to actually be warbots? And they used to be warbots of the Primes rebelling against Sentinel Prime, rebelling against the bad guy. So I didn't really understand why they then went off to support Megatron. It didn't make sense to me, that bit. But anyway, that's what happens. Part of the High Guard becomes Decepticons and works for Megatron. And then the other ones that follow Optimus Prime are Autobots. And they're all Transformers. So that's the main storyline of how they were friends originally, Megatron, Optimus Prime, and became enemies. And you know that Megatron is going to come back. And they do show a bit in the credits. So, yes, very, very interesting. I'm trying to think what bit they showed in the credits now, but I can't remember. But they definitely showed something because I remember seeing it. So, anyway, I always watch the credits. I always encourage people to watch the credits. So, and I can't, yeah, so, right, okay, there is something on Wikipedia that says about the credits. So, yes. Oh, yes, that's it. Megatron renames the High Guard into the Decepticons, which starts a rebellion against Optimus leadership. So that's in like the post credits. So if you don't watch the end of the credits, then you don't actually know what happens, and the Optimus you don't see, not Optimus Prime, you don't see Megatron change the High Guard into Decepticons, like makes them Decepticons, his disciples, if you like. So that's a bit that people are missing, which is the essential core component of the whole story, is the D16 changed into Megatron, but then he takes the High Guards and makes them into his Decepticons. That's how he gets an army of bots for him. So, yes, that's a really important part of the movie, but it's at the end of the credits. So you should watch that bit. Always watch the end of the credits, the very end where all the credits go, and then it's like black blank screen, and then often it comes up then in the copyright bit, but sometimes it comes up before then. Sometimes there's two bits. So yes, anyway, it's a really good movie. I absolutely loved it. I'm like, finally understand it now. They're all Transformers. Optimus Prime has followers, like people who are working for him, bots, if you like, who are working for him. They're not really people, but I can't keep calling them people, but they're bots. The bots that work for him are Autobots. So Optimus Prime with his army of Autobots, and Megatron with his army of Decepticons, all are Transformers. And it's the transforming cogs in their chest that makes them transform. And there's also a theme throughout the movie when they talk about the cogs, it's actually their mindset that makes them a transformer, not just their cog. Very important that it's what they believe. So yes, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you liked this review. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an episode. If you've seen Transformers 1, I'd love to know what you think. Have you seen the comics? Have you read any books to do with I was going to say Spider-Man then. Why was I talking about Spider-Man? Oh my God. I don't, for some reason, the cover of this like movie, it reminds me of Spider-Man. I don't know why I got Spider-Man coming in my head, but I ended up seeing a Spider-Man in my head, probably because I watched a little clip earlier, and it was like, oh, the Spider-Man's reaction to paparazzi, and had 3 different Spider-Man in it, and Tom Holland was the only one who like thumbs up to the paparazzi out of all the 3 people who've played Spider-Man in the past. So I think that's why I had a fleeting moment for Spider-Man. I think there's a Spider-Man coming out, isn't there? Another one sometime, hopefully. I love Spider-Man, but I love Transformers 1. It was absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. So I hope this gives you clarity. The Optimus Prime has Autobots as his army, and Megatron has Decepticons as his army, and they're all Transformers. So yeah, anyway, it's an incredible movie, full of action, full of robots, full of transformations and color and amazing, scenes. I love it so much. Very good videography, very good animation, incredible. Go and watch it, and let me know what you think in the comments. If you love superhero movies, go and grab a copy of my autobiographical fibromyalgia self-help handbook, How to Manage Fibromyalgia, Have Less Pain, More Energy, and Feel Happier Like a Superhero Rock Star. That's me in my Ace Fibro Girl outfit. Do give that a read. And Diary Confessions of a Hyper-Romantic Asexual, my best-selling book that came out this year, is still on special offer for Cyber Monday week this week. So go and get a copy. Both printed and hardcover and Kindle are reduced for limited time only. So grab a copy of that, and make sure you pay attention to the 78 life lessons to Ace Your Life. And Asexual Perspectives, my other best-selling book, is also available on Amazon. Go and grab copies of those now. I'll see you soon on this video live stream. Lots of love. Take care. Bye.